end up making out all night. Chris wakes up alone the next morning. Sky goes back to her room, but Ronald keeps watching her. Lisa yells at her for not calling and leaving her alone for so long. She also tells her that this is her place and Sky is staying there because they are more than just roommates. Chris cannot help but think about Sky for the rest of the day. He also remembers a chat with Willow in which he promised to never leave her alone and how his wife told him to move on. When night comes, Chris goes to the bar where Sky works to pick her up. Sky is happy to see him, but before they can be friends, she needs to tell him she lied the night before. She came here to get away from an abusive family, and she feels like she is broken because she has never had a real family and has been moved from foster home to foster home since she was 6. Chris does not mind, and he admits that his parents cared more about their business than them when he was growing up, so he knows how it feels. Moments later, they get to Chris' car, where they find Kiju trying to steal it. Chris calls him out. When Kiju gets angry, he steps back. Sky then makes the situation worse by throwing her beer bottle at the thief. Chris is angry, so Kiju hits him until he breaks his leg. After spending the night in the hospital, Sky helps Chris get home in a wheelchair because his leg is still in a cast. Chris decides to hire Sky as his new nurse and tells her to go get her things from her apartment because Sky feels bad and wants to help more. He also gives her the system codes so that she can get back into the house when she comes back. When Sky gets to her apartment, she finds Ronald telling Lisa that she was happier before Sky came into her life. Sky sends Ronald away by pointing out all the spying he does on them. Lisa then yells at Sky again and begs her not to leave. Sky says she won't, and the two of them get hot and heavy to make up. Moments later, Sky is back at Chris' house taking care of him. Chris is so preoccupied with Sky's presence that he does not hear Jamie's call. Chris tells Sky he loved her before bed, but Sky says it is because of the drugs. The next morning, while Chris is sleeping, Sky takes his phone after using his space to unlock it. While this is going on, Ronald goes to Lisa's room to ask for the rent. He uses the master key to get in when no one answers. He is shocked to find Lisa dead in the tub. Soon, the cops show up and say that it looks like Lisa ended things on her own. Ronald tells them that it was probably because Sky left her, but the police are suspicious because they cannot find any record of a woman named Skylar Webb in their files. This makes Ronald realize that he has never seen an ID from her. Then a group of reporters comes to cover the story and Ronald tries to use the opportunity to talk about his properties, but they do not listen. A few hours later, Chris gets a call from Jamie, who is surprised to hear that Chris is not a wimp like she thought. Chris tells her about his leg and asks her to bring Willow to work with her on Friday. He promises that the divorce papers will be signed by then. After that, Chris takes advantage of the fact that Sky is taking a shower to look in her bag. He finds some pictures of Sky and Lisa. Sky catches him in the act, but she does not mind because she wants to get to know him better. In the evening, they start making out again, but when Chris falls asleep, Sky goes to Willow's room to spend the night. When Chris wakes up the next morning, Sky is no longer there. He cannot find his phone and the tablet does not work. But at least the main screen in the house works, and Chris finds out that Lisa is dead from the news. When Sky gets home, Chris tells her about Lisa, but Sky does not care. In fact, she says in a casual way that she killed her. Chris thinks she is kidding, but Sky quickly explains that she never loved Lisa. She was just using her because of her apartment. It was the perfect place for Sky to watch Chris and learn all of his habits. She set up the perfect situation for 2 months until they met at the market, which was not an accident. Chris tries to kick her out, but Sky ignores him. When Chris tries to leave instead, Sky locks the doors because she has had his phone the whole time. When Chris tries to get the phone back, Sky uses a taser to knock him out. Back at Lisa's house, Ronald goes inside to clean it up for new renters and sees that Sky's telescope is pointed at Chris' house. Ronald figures out that he can use it to spy on his neighbors and keeps it there for his own use. This lets him find out that Sky is hiding from the cops at Chris' place. Chris wakes up a short time later and finds himself tied to the wheelchair. Chris does not want to give Sky his passwords and security codes, so Sky uses a drill to hurt him until she gets what she wants. Then in the afternoon, Sky moves all of Chris' money into her own bank accounts. Then she goes back to Chris and asks him to call his bankers and traders to sell his stock so she can get money for her own business. Even though Ronald is still watching from a distance, Sky uses a pair of scissors to cut Chris' hands free so he can look nice for the video call. Chris instantly uses this to push Sky to the ground and try to attack her. Sky grabs her scissors again, but this time she hurts Chris on the shoulder before she lets go of his grip. Then she gets Chris to help her by saying she will hurt Jamie and Willow. Chris agrees to play along, and Sky starts taking pictures of his very expensive collection of art and wine to sell. Hee-ju shows up a few hours later because he has been working with Sky the whole time. They go into town together to take care of business. Later, Ronald breaks into the house by breaking a window, which rings Sky's phone. Chris can only get Ronald to help him if he gives him his Picasso picture, which is worth $7 million. Ronald does not have a cell phone, which is too bad, because he thinks they cause brain cancer. However, he does start to set Chris free from his chains. At that time, Sky comes back and uses Chris's phone to lock all the doors so Ronald cannot get out. Ronald tries to hide in another room, so Sky leaves Chris in front of the security cams and makes him watch as she follows Ronald around the house with a sword from the art collection. Sky finally catches up with Ronald in the garage, kills him, and in the process breaks the Picasso. Chris takes the chance to run outside and get away from the situation for good. The car is locked, but he can still use the snow bike. With a cast on his leg, it is hard for Chris to go down the hill. When he gets to the bottom, he trips and falls on the road. A car coming at him stops just in time to avoid hitting him, and Sebastian, the driver, does not think twice about helping Chris by putting him in his car and calling 911. When the operator answers, Sebastian hands the phone to Chris. Chris starts to tell the operator what happened, but stops when he learns Sebastian is taking him home. The person on the phone turns out to be Sky, not 911, and Sebastian has been working with Sky the whole time. Sebastian hits Chris and puts him back in his wheelchair. Then he kisses Sky and tells her he is her stepfather. Sebastian had been married to Sky's mother, but she died within a few months. Sebastian then started dating Sky and taught her how to be a good con artist. She is especially good at making old rich guys fall in love with her so she can rob them. Sebastian thinks this is fair because the rich have everything and do not share with the poor. Chris has to hear about how Sky and Sebastian make out in his room at night. After that, Sky comes to check on Chris and says she will miss the house when she leaves. This makes Chris say that she could have had this life by just being his girlfriend instead of taking it. Sky does not want to accept that such dreams can come true, so she says that they still need to get to Chris' safe deposit box at the main branch of American Bank, where there are $14 million in bearer bonds. To get into it, they need Chris's fingerprint, so Sebastian comes with a knife and cuts off Chris's thumb. The next morning, Jamie and Willow go to the house, and as soon as they get there, Jamie gets suspicious. Sky acts like a nurse and tells them Chris is sleeping, so they should come back later. Jamie threatens to call the cops because of this. Since Jamie will not participate, Sebastian comes to the room and drags Willow and Jamie into the same walk-in closet where they left Chris last night. Sky puts Jamie's phone in the microwave so it cannot be tracked, and Sebastian wraps a fake cast around his hand to make Chris' thumb look like it is his own. Sebastian sees that Sky is acting strangely on the road, as if she is not sure what to do, but Sky says she is fine. Sebastian acts like Chris at the bank and puts his thumb on the cash box. It takes him a few tries to get it right. When they finally open the box, though, all they find is a note. Chris sees a hole in the house and wants Willow to escape through it. At first, Jamie says no because it is too dangerous, but she changes her mind when she realizes it is the only way for them to stay alive. Chris makes sure Willow knows that the lock code is her birthday, and then he puts her on the vent to send her out of the building. After that, Chris tells Jamie everything that happened, and Jamie says that the thieves will not find the bonds because she took them. Her lawyer told her to do that so she would have something to use against Jamie if he refused to pay the right amount during the divorce. Chris knows that the criminals will be back soon to ask about the bonds. He tries to tell Willow to come back, but it is too late. She has already left the building and is coming back in through the main door. Sky and Sebastian see her on the phone security cams and run back into the house to end things for good. Sebastian gives his gun to Sky and checks that the closet is empty. As he goes down the hallway, Chris jumps on him to attack him, while Willow and Jamie hide in another room. Chris is still hurt and weak, so it is easy for Sebastian to beat him. This gives Sky a chance to join them, point her gun at Chris, and ask where Jamie is. Sebastian keeps yelling at Sky and telling her to kill Chris. After years of abuse, Sky finally snapped and killed Sebastian instead. Chris uses Sky's confusion to stab him and take back his phone before running away. Using the app that runs the house, he plays loud music to cover any sounds that could give him away and turns off the lights. But thanks to the thermal cameras, he can still see Sky. As Sky walks around the house looking for him, Chris plays tricks on her mind by doing things like opening the windows and starting the fireplace. When Sky finally walks by his door, Chris jumps on her and makes her drop the gun. Then they fight on the floor. Because he is hurt, Sky has no trouble beating him, which makes Jamie come out to fight her too. Sky stabs Jamie in the leg, and Chris attacks her with the sword. Just as Sky is about to kill them both, she drops to the floor. It turns out that Willow has also come out and used the gun well. Jamie takes Willow outside to meet the police because she can hear their sounds. As Chris drags his body through the floor to reach them, Sky calls his name and tells him her real name is Margaret before she dies.